go ahead and call this meeting to order. And we'll start with item 2, the fire department staffing request for fiscal year 25-26 budget.
So before we get going, so last week we were in a meeting, Wednesday morning, I think it was, with the county and all the towns and everyone. And, they are hot and heavy doing the RFP for the study for Montgomery County, the county is. And, so what I'm gonna, suggest is that items 2 and 3, that, they get tabled for this year until such time as we, the study's done. Cause the study will answer the questions we have, or well, let's hope it answers the questions we have. And the county made a point, Steve Fizikowski said during that discussion that the last time they looked at this, I forget how many years ago it was, that if the county was to take over fire and rescue as a whole, that they'd have to raise taxes 19 cents per thousand, I think it was. Anyways,
Per 100 assessed value.
per 100 assessed value, that's it. So they've got, the RFP is supposed to go out the end of this week. They got 30 days to reply and then 6 to 8 months for the study. So sometime November timeframe, we should have a report back as to what the recommendation for the county is. So unless there's much disagreement, I think at this point we table 2 and 3 for this next budget year.
Yep, I think that works for me. I think that makes sense. Is there anything before we table them that we should, while they're doing the study, that we think we need to do? For example, I know that they're interested in the cost of the different responses. Should we be gathering that data, or is that?
So
in
we
progress?
did we actually provided input. We seen the RFP. Scott, I won't, go ahead. You
Well, originally the RFP was just gonna address staffing, it was gonna address facilities, and it was gonna address, vehicles.
Mhm.
We asked for the financial piece,
Mhm.
so, and I think Blacksburg kind of follows suit with that as well, so.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's gonna be a big component of this, and I think that's where we'll see what happens.
Gotcha, okay.
But as part of that, whatever consultant they'll go through, they'll talk to us, I'm sure, and get through our
Gotcha.
information and dig through, and if they can find, and it's gonna be hard to find an average cost per call because all the calls
Right.
are different, but they'll hopefully be able to provide us some better
Give us
numbers,
some
so we can
guidance.
make some realistic decisions off of.
Okay,
Chief.
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, the call, you can't really define a cost, set cost per call because the call types are so different, requires so many different truck response depending on the call type. So I think, the study's gonna answer all the questions that everybody's trying to answer right now.
Mhm.
So I would agree to table it until that study comes back, take a look at it and see where we go next.
Perfect, that sounds great. All right, then we'll do that. I'm really glad to know also that we don't need to do something in addition to the study, that we'll get all that information through the study. That's great. Okay. All right, so we'll table items 2 and 3, and we'll check back on those towards the end of the year as that study comes to conclusion. All right, so item number 4, police department staffing request for FY 25-26 budget.
Is there anything different about it? We
No,
just put it on
no,
here
just
because,
put it on there because.
okay.
I don't have any open questions for that. I know we're staffing up positions because folks are getting ready to retire.
Correct.
So we're overlapping those positions for a little while, and then when those folks retire, you'll be back to where you wanna be as far as the staffing level.
Correct. Got any guys from Radford yet?
One. Just made an offer last week. Took his polygraph over the weekend. We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done well and everything. He's actually the son of somebody that already works for him.
All right, anything else then on that staffing request?
No, ma'am.
All right, then we'll move to item number 5, Montgomery County Emergency Services request.
So is there anything else, so where did we leave off? We were asking them for, at first we were gonna ask them for X hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then we said we were gonna try to come up with a per call, or bill them per call.
We used basically a 3-year average number of calls and did basically a cost per call, and we're asking for essentially half of what what it costs to run calls in the county, is that correct?
Well, that was the original letter. I mean, we can,
Yes.
if that's the approach we wanna take, if we wanna take the number of calls and just come up with I mean, you're doing this, pulling a number out of the air as a cost per call. But we can take an average, total cost, total calls, and we can, run it that way, but it's, again, it's,
Yeah, and they've been, the majority of them that I've heard so far are pretty adamant that they've passed their budget, they're not gonna do anything this year. I can tell you that in that one little communal meeting that we had last week, Randy took a tough stand, so did, Blacksburg. It was, the town manager of Blacksburg and Randy beat the county up pretty bad on, the fire rescue, and it all started because the school board chair or president, whatever he is, superintendent, that's him. He said that they were gonna ask Blacksburg for some SROs, and Blacksburg said Christiansburg started this 2 or 3 years ago, and the sheriff's department gave them SROs, why can't they give us SROs? And then let's just say it was a fun meeting from that point forward. For probably about 25 minutes between fire rescue and SROs, it was heated between the county and the two towns anyway. So, anyway, but they're adamant they have no money, that their budget's tight, and, I'm not saying we don't ask, just saying that they're pretty adamant. So we need to come up with something realistic instead of pulling a number out of the sky.
no, I agree.
Does,
Well, in the original request, that was basically taking all the revenue recovery funds out, that was taking all the salaries out, and that was just looking at pure operating costs. Took out the money that they were already giving us and then trying to split what was left.
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's the best way to go with. With this, study underway, or soon to be underway, I mean, I would anticipate they would push back and wanna see the results of the study before they give us any funding. Not that I think we should not ask in anticipation of that, but what do you think?
Yeah, I just think we need to come up with something realistic. I mean, it's not that, and I'm not saying that our divide by
Yeah,
three and,
No, that's right.
and statistics wasn't
That's right.
something,
It was,
but,
it was a starting approach.
is there not some way that we can say we can bill per call, some actual hours, actual time on target, or, I mean, is there is it,
You could, I guess, kind of come up with a cost per call simply by taking the number of calls and dividing it by the operations of the department.
yeah, I'm not saying that we say we want $100,000 a month because we do this, but is there, Chief, tell me,
Every fire response is different.
Yeah, I know.
So, I'm not sure how we can take the total number of calls and divide it out by how we run them, because we have calls that are 1 truck responses, we have calls that are 2 truck responses, we have calls that are 4 truck responses. If we go into Montgomery County for mutual aid, how do we back that out? Because we're under mutual aid agreement with every department in Montgomery County. How do you back those calls out? How do you factor those calls in? I'm not sure. I think, you can look at the current budgets that we have, fire and EMS, and we did this. We took the numbers and we took our total amount of calls and we broke it down, we come up with a figure, then we factored in some operational calls. That's how we come to the figure that Scott came up with. I don't know how we would break it down on a per call basis. That's gonna be hard to do because the call types are so different.
So,
And you might be, and say like, for example, if you're out on a motor vehicle crash and you're there on scene for 2 hours or 3 hours versus a motor vehicle crash that you're out for a half hour,
Right.
how are you gonna break all that down in minutes?
Hopefully,
Hours?
hopefully whatever study gets done, we'll break that out.
I think-
Assuming they're gonna talk to us, and get our input, maybe there's different levels of calls that you could equate to that, and there's costs behind. again, till somebody does data collection and still somebody does the analysis.
Yeah, because you got, I mean, there's a different, if you go back and look at FEMA stuff like we do when we do FEMA reporting, there's a different fee for the type of truck it is. And how many people are on that truck, for how many hours. So that has all gotta be collected and it's all gotta be accumulated and put together to be able to do a call breakdown per call.
Mhm.
I think it's gonna be, that part's gonna be hard to do, but somebody that's in that business could do it.
You can make a lot of arguments too, and I could even make the argument that literally all our funding for fire and EMS is supplemented, because it is, basically it's, in a way, a double tax, so.
So, I guess that, brings me back to my original question. Do we need to have the study before we can give them a more detailed and specific number? Because through the study, we can break down what is, like, I imagine us at some point being able to have some way, a record, a sheet of some kind, where we have a calculation, a dollar amount for trucks and responses and times and people, and we can just fill in the numbers. It was this long, we deployed this truck, we deployed this many people, here's the number, and then we send it to the county when it's in the county. Or something along those lines, but we don't know what that breakdown is, and if we aren't sure how to break it down, and we need somebody who has done that work, and that's the people doing the study, then I feel like we have to get the study so we can break those
I
numbers
think-
down.
Personally, I think we've gotta get the study to be able to break that down. Once they award the RFP and whatever that vendor is hands us a template of how to break it down, then we can break that down.
It's my hope with this study, it's not an us versus them thing, it's
Yeah.
cooperative.
Mhm.
Let's get it done and get it right.
Yeah.
And I think, I think the ultimate goal here needs to be, we've built working relationships with the county for years and years and years, and our actual working relationship on the street is the best it's ever been. And I think at the end of the day, that we need to maintain that working relationship with the county, because they can't do it without us,
Yeah.
and we can't do it without them.
Yeah, we definitely don't
With
wanna damage any of their
Correct.
relationships, for sure.
So I think the study, the data collection, putting all that figure together, it's gonna show the need. It's gonna show the need for every department within the county, not just us. It'll show Blacksburg, Longshot, Reiner. What are the current needs in Elston, even though they're getting ready to staff Elston around the clock. What is Elston's current needs?
Right.
Assuming it's done right.
Right. So then that brings me to my next question is, what do we need to do with that request? We have an open letter right now, an open request. From my discussions, around this letter, it doesn't sound like they, it sounds like they're willing to potentially meet, but it doesn't sound like they are comfortable or confident in the number. They
Sure.
want really down to detail specifics. So what do we do with that letter? Do we
So I
do we
think the
recommend
initial,
pausing
just
that?
where we were at, helped force the hand of this study,
Mhm.
right? Asking them to put money out, and I think that we've set a precedent with SROs that, we're serious, we don't, we're gonna push this through. So we've got them where they're actually doing a realistic study of what's required for the area, so, I'm not sure that, they're gonna say, look, we're doing a study, we'll tell you what we're gonna pay you when the study's done. That's what I'd tell you if I was a board of supervisor member, it'd be, okay, we heard you, loud and clear, we're gonna do this study, and we'll come back and tell you that study says you don't get a dime, or study says you get 50 cents. And then we'll go from there. That's my thought. And we can present it to our peers on council.
Mhm. Yep, I'm comfortable with us pulling that request back and waiting until the study and working with the detailed information that they're after. I think you're right about these requests sparking that study, that conversation to have the study. I think that's a huge win. And the fact that they're getting it done so promptly is promising to me.
they had requested meeting dates in May, potentially. Do you still want to have the May meeting with them, or should we wait until November until the study's done?
I think we should poll our peers on council on that. And if the majority still wants to do it, then, you know, we have the meeting and let them tell us what they wanna tell us. But my suggestion to our peers is that, you know, we've got this step going, we'll have better data, better knowledge of what to do. So, I can tell you that I think we postponed, but it's a majority council decision, not just mine and Tanya's.
The only agenda item for that meeting was just gonna be this request, right?
Yes.
And they are not open to other agenda items.
They said that it would only be these agenda items, and like I say, I don't see them making an amendment to the budget until at least the study's done,
Mhm,
so.
So yeah, I agree with Tim. I mean, if they say they're happy to meet and have just an open discussion, or we can start to build some collaboration with them, I would love that,
That was my thought, is, you know, if you just had FaceTime with them, and just put their concerns out, put your concerns out.
Yeah.
You know, and whether it's super productive or not, I don't know, but it's a starting place for communication.
That's what I would recommend to the rest of council, and then we can throw the idea out to them and know that we may not make some decisions, and we're not asking for any money at that moment, but yeah, just something to build the relationships between us and them, I think would be great. So we can put that on the next council agenda and just see what everybody says. Anything else on that?
No,
Anything?
All right, so then just any other items in general at all?
Metallica concert next Wednesday in Blacksburg, expecting a lot of people. They've all gotta come right through the middle of Christiansburg, so. We're not committing any resources to the town of Blacksburg over there, because town of Blacksburg is, fire and EMS are gonna be, or fire department's gonna be tied up at the stadium. Virginia Tech Rescue, and they've got other agencies coming in to help them in the stadium. Blacksburg Rescue's gonna cover all downtown Blacksburg and around Blacksburg. We're gonna keep our people over here, because if we have any incidents, it'll be on the bypass, so we'll, be back getting toward 81, you know, once they turn the people, you know, coming in, the traffic's gonna be heavy coming in. It's gonna back up on the bypass till they get everybody in, get them parked, then there's gonna be a period of time where there's gonna be no traffic, and then when as the concert gets close to closing out, then there's gonna be a ton of traffic going back to 81. And we'll deal with it no different than a football game. I mean, it's gonna be the same level of traffic as we have during football season. And, but we're gonna keep our resources here. We touched base with Jim Lansing at Public Works to get 2 digital message boards put up. One at the rec center and one at Dr. Carter's old office over here that just says 81 traffic, turn right on Depot. If we have a backup on the bypass, or the bypass is shut down eastbound, then everything will be running off coming into downtown, and we want them to come straight down North Franklin Street, turn right on Depot and go back to 81 that way. We don't want them coming back through town. So we've worked on that. We'll touch base again with Jim tomorrow and make sure we've got all that in place. I'll have some volunteer groups, and Deputy Fire Marshal Witt will be working that night, helping stage people where we need to stage them to be able to cover the bypass both directions in and out. Josh is gonna have people around. I think you're planning on working too that night. But we've got our end covered for it. It's so different than football game.